like you're in the Army.
I want a deep dive.
Okay,
How did you feel?
How did it really go?
Yeah.
I got shot in basic training. I got food poisoning in airborne school. I fell off the fast rope tower in RIP. So each of those were delays in their own. So when I got shot in basic training, it was during basic rifle marksmanship, and I was on the 200-meter line at the known distance range on main post Fort Benning there, and caught one in my shoulder. The scar's still there to this day. And basically I had to, I was in like week 5 or 6 at that point. But, you know, when you're qualifying in basic, and I'm sure this is the same way in any of the services, it's kind of a big gate that you have to pass. And so when I got shot, they're like, you know, you're going to need to go home, because I couldn't like do a push up or anything like that. They're like, we're going to send you home on 30 days of convalescent leave to heal up, and then have you come back. They're like, if you qualify before you leave on your rifle, then you can be reinserted at week 6 when you come back with a different company. That's at week 6. If you don't qualify, then you're a day 1. You go back to, you didn't reach the first save point, right? And so you're back to day 1. And I was like, well, that, you know, anybody that's ever gone through any basic training ever is like, I don't want to do this shit any longer than I have to. So it was like, yeah, let me go qualify. So I had to go out there, big old bandage on my arm, and you know, admit it, you know, some people take multiple attempts to qualify healthy. My excuse is that I was literally having to shoot with my left eye and left eye. Like it was not a comfortable situation. I was shooting all fucked up. And so it took me a couple of rounds up there, but I finally qualified. And that was like, okay, yep, you're good to go. And I didn't even qualify at like the lowest level. It was at like the middle marksman or no. Yeah. Whatever the middle level is, you know, not expert, but the one in between.
Sharpshooter?
Yeah, sharpshooter.
Yeah.
So after multiple times, which I feel like if you take more than one time to qualify, you should immediately be, like the best you can do is the lowest level if you took multiple tries. You shouldn't be able to qualify as like a sharpshooter and expert if you took multiple tries.
Were you doing, was that like the 30, the drop down, or like Army does the whole like.
Yep. It was those. It was the pop-up targets,
yeah.
Iron sights, all of that. No. Correction, it was not iron sights. They just started us on those M68 comp M's, I think.
Oh yeah, the aim points or whatever, or the red dots.
No, that was RIP. No, so it was iron sights in basics. It's been a couple years. It was iron sights in basic, and then when I went to RIP, it was they had us on the comp M's. So iron sights, the regular rifles, nothing Gucci on them or anything like that. You know, they're basic training rifles, so they've been ran through like crazy. But yeah, you don't qualify. And so then I got sent back home on 30 days of con leave, came back, which was actually kind of cool because, you know, everybody looks forward to their summer after their senior year before everybody goes to college and stuff. And I was going to be missing out on that. And I actually got a little bit of it and kind of came back as, everybody back, small town, everybody heard that I got shot. And
they think it was in combat, like right away. They're like, "You went to war already." And got shot.
There may have been like one or two people, but usually there was like, "Wait a second, you haven't even graduated basic." It was more of a like, "There's no way you got shot in combat," you know. And it was like, "Nope, it happened in basic training." I actually had one specific friend. His name's Brent. He may listen to this. He, all through our senior year of high school, when he found out I was joining the Army, he's like, "You're gonna get shot. You're gonna get shot in like basic training." You know, and I was like, Brent, that doesn't happen. Like that's not a thing that happens to people. I might get shot in Iraq or something. I'm not going to get shot in basic training. And then when I came back, he like, according to him, I think he went and bought a bunch of lottery tickets when he found out because it was like winning the lottery to him. He's like, man, I need to ride this luck because if Marty got shot in and he to this day is like so proud that he called it.
So how did you get shot? Like, I mean, like, did somebody, obviously they called like,
so it was, you know how range complexes are set up on bases. They're kind of all right next to each other. And typically you will have a berm with trees on it separating them. This was the known distance range on Fort Benning at the time. They did not have a berm like they did out at the Sand Hill complex. They had just a tree strip. And so not the same level of protection between. So we were on the known distance range. Like I said, I was on the 200-meter line. And it was those ones where half the company goes down to sit with the targets and they'll like mark them and then wheel them up. Yeah. They're like behind a berm back there. Yeah. And then the other half is shooting. Well, the range next door to us was, again, a bunch of basic trainees, but they were doing a live fire 3 to 5 second rushes. And so they're learning how to move and shoot at the same time, basically.
And there's no berm between you.
And no berm in between. And, I think before me, it had never been an issue, a 3 to 5 second rush, typically you will run 3 to 5 seconds forward at the low ready, and then you will come to a stop in an aggressive position, raise your rifle, and then you will move it to fire and squeeze off your rounds, and then, a controlled pair, I think it is, and then put your rifle before lowering it back on safe, and then lower it back to the low ready, and then move your next 3 to 5 seconds forward. That's how it's supposed to work. Apparently, and I never met the person that shot me or anything like that, but apparently what I was told is that this person did their 3 to 5 seconds forward, this high-speed individual did their 3 to 5 seconds forward, brought up to shoot, moved it, instead of to regular fire, they flipped it to 3-round burst, and no, I'm getting this wrong. They moved it to fire, and then because you go from safe to fire to 3-round burst. So they moved it to fire, shot off their controlled pair, but then instead of going back down to the low ready, they kind of daddy shotgunned it, never took their finger out of the trigger well, so the finger was still on the trigger, and they flipped the selector switch to the wrong way to over 2 3-round burst, and then took off tucking down the range, tripped on a root or their feet or what, tripped on something, and in the process of falling, squeezed off a 3-round burst, off to their left, and one of those rounds caught my shoulder.
Dude, that's wild. Yeah. I mean that's like, joke about it now, but that could have took your head off.
Could have. Everything in basic is you're in a buddy system. Yeah. My buddy that was standing right there, that had he been the one the other way around, he was a short little Asian kid. Yeah. Literally, if we were just standing there, my shoulder was his head. Literally, if that had happened 2 minutes prior, he would have caught one in the dome. Yeah. Or it would have been a very near, Trump level, Matrix, one of those things. But it was it could have been bad. So lucky that he wasn't standing there, because he's significantly shorter than me and all that. And then also, as far as getting shot goes, pretty lucky, because it entered right here, right behind the armpit. So when they look at, and because it was coming off to my right, it wasn't a straight on, it was a lateral entry. So it didn't go through, it traveled toward my spine, but stopped just shy of the spine. So it stayed within that muscle, that back muscle. And where it entered, it had missed my brachiocephalic artery by a millimeter, which if it had even nicked that, dude, you got 30 seconds. That's a tough one. That's a lot of people know the femoral artery because of Black Hawk Down. It's the femoral artery of your armpit, your brachiocephalic artery. You do not want to cut that thing. And so I was in an unlucky situation, fairly lucky in that it stopped short of my spinal column and it just missed my brachiocephalic artery. So again, sucks. It delayed my my journey through the initial entry training.
Way worse in so many ways.
Exactly. So you just got to kind of say hey man, that sucked. And I think that there's probably a life lesson of that. When things are bad, they could always be worse. Right. And that was kind of one of my first real examples of that.
I was curious about that, because the Marine Corps, we move up, or we move back. So you go 100 and then we move back.
That's what we were doing.
Yeah. And so now I see Army now, it's pop-ups. I was oh, you get shot.
Well, this was the known distance range. The pop-up range is a separate range.
Oh, separate. Yeah. Okay, got it.
And this wasn't me qualifying. This was during basic rifle marksmanship, just one of the ranges that you do.
It's just wild they didn't have a berm between you guys.
And again, on our Sand Hill complex, where all of the basic training ranges, they do have that. Mm-hmm. The known distance range on main post is you only go there because I don't know what the deal is. I think it might be the only known distance range on the post, or maybe it was then. I don't know. Something was going on. But you typically don't go all the way to main post to shoot. You typically stay out there at those Sand Hill complexes.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. And those ranges on main post, they're older. They go back to World War II,
It was crazy. I have a same kind of story there. It wasn't so Marine Corps Bootcamp, sometimes if you don't want to be there, people try to find a way to get out. Mm-hmm. And so I was in infantry school. And when I was in boot camp at Edson Range, it's a big deal. It's like 2 weeks, you know, where you're going back and forth shooting all the time. And you see an ambulance go up and this kid had shot himself and all this stuff. We're like, oh, okay, well, what happened? Whatever. But, you know, the word had gotten around, you know, they told us like, don't do stupid shit. Don't shoot yourself, whatever. And then I get to infantry school and you realize that like a lot of those guys with you at infantry school were with you in boot camp. They were in another company or they were waiting to pick up or whatever.
Yep.
So we all kind of converge in infantry school. And he was like, the one guy, he was like, yeah, I was right next to him. I was like, oh, what happened? He goes, the guy didn't want to be there anymore. So he took the M16, shot his leg, hit his artery. And like, so the very little teachable C they gave us in boot camp, like the most minimal, which was like tourniquet, whatever.
Yeah.
He like ran over and tourniquet the kid, but the kid ended up losing his leg.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And like, it was crazy because the kid, we weren't even in combat, and he's like, yeah, I think I got some PTSD from that. Because as he was like, he looked over at the kid, he shot himself, and it was like hit the artery, so it's like blood's going everywhere, and he like ran over and helped him. He's like, yeah, man, it kind of shook me up a little bit, and I'm like, bro, we're not even in combat yet, and you've already like got shaken up.
That's why I've heard people say before, like, oh, that dude was never in combat, so he's never seen anything. Like, man, there's some like messed up stuff that happens in the military, even outside of combat. Not as common for sure.
No.
There's like some things that you see that like are, you know, especially if you're in the medical field or something like that. Like it's not just combat that like messed up situations happen.